Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Hard Points, the podcast about energy security and the startup economy, how they intersect to shape the world around us. We unpack the real dynamics behind the headlines, what's changing, what it means, and why it matters to you. Thanks for being here. Neal, how was your weekend?
Pretty solid. I did a bunch of work catch up because I totally played hooky last week. Took the boys on a road trip. We got stuck in a big snowstorm, and it's sort of one of these things. It's like the modern life allows you to do what I did. Like I actually worked all day Saturday, but I had such an awesome week. The week before, it was totally fine.
Yeah, no, I remember you were working, especially the weekend before too. So it's nice to take. That's the joy of entrepreneurship is you get to set your own schedule, and you're like, yeah, I want to go out on a Thursday. Cool, I'm going to go do that. So, yeah, awesome. Yeah. You managed to avoid avalanches. I saw the whole bunch of backcountry skiers getting wiped out in California there.
Oh man, it's tragedy. Yes, we were going to go to Tahoe. Sort of one of those things. It was mostly about relationships. I had a bunch of good conversations with the boys in the car. One of the things we talked about was just the maintaining personal relationships. So we lived in the Bay Area for 10 years. A couple of guys up there that were in the Air Force, and we just had a shared set of experiences, both military veterans. This is a group of three of us actually, and then going into startup economy afterwards. And so this was an opportunity to go hang out with them. They were kind of doing the same thing. It was ski week. We're going to go meet in Tahoe, except that we got halfway there and the snow, they closed 395 north of Mammoth. So we just couldn't go. Like actually, as we were approaching that where they shut the highway down, there were no kidding, like 30 spinouts of just cars just on the side of the road that had hit whatever snowbank or whatever. And we've got a Jeep Grand Cherokee, so felt pretty confident, but still there was like 4 runners that were off in the snowbank. So it was nerve-wracking. But yeah, we got halfway there and decided like, look, we're not getting to Tahoe because the road's closed. So let's just go to Mammoth. So we did.
Well, that's good too. Someday I'll have to tell you about the story about my dad driving on a closed road in Wyoming with his father in the middle of a pickup truck. The story's a little wild, but it ends with my father or my grandfather showing up at my parents' house. This is before I was born. Pouring himself 3 fingers of gin, drinking it in one swing, and going to bed. Like didn't even say hello to my mother. So probably the better that you went to Mammoth and didn't scare the hell out of your children.
Yes. Well, it was also snowing heavily in Mammoth, and so there was 5 feet of snow in Mammoth as we were like the day we arrived, and so that was just getting to a place where we could eat. Finding a place that had rooms available was all just like last minute. We made it work, and the boys were. I mean, I made it light. I mean, they didn't know it was. It was kind of a hairy situation. I didn't want to scare him to that point, to your previous point. So it all worked out. And then we actually did get some skiing in the next day, but it was still snowing so heavily that, my 11-year-old was fine, but my 8-year-old was like, yeah, no, this is cold. I want hot chocolate.
Yeah, there's that point. I mean, like 5 feet too. Like that's taller than your children.
Yeah.
So there was more snow than child there.
True statement. But anyway, how about you? Any good weekend shenanigans?
A little bit more low key. So went to church yesterday. Watched Independence Day. Just kind of like had a chill Sunday, which was nice. Had a chili cook off that I.
Wait, did you provide the fighter pilot voiceover of Independence Day when you were watching it this time?
No, I did not. For those unfamiliar, what we're talking about is. Neal and I have both done a take on the F-18 scenes in Independence Day and about how they're kind of full shit. Fun, but full shit. I was thinking about you actually as I was watching
it. My great idea to bomb it instead of shoot it with missiles, or what?
Yeah, I don't know. Give it a cold, the virus. Ain't over till the fat lady sings. Get out the cigars. All the things, right? So the F-18 parachute that you can deploy to block the view of the alien spacecraft, right?
Right.
All the
Super
things.
awesome. All the things. But anyway, if any of our listeners are interested, you can find that YouTube episode. Maybe we'll put a link to it in the show notes because, it's on a fellow podcaster's live stream or whatever, but I think he posts the videos.
Yeah, he sure did. So, yeah, no, good weekend. Still hot here. Colorado's terrible snow year continues. We got a little snow last week up in the mountains, but it's going to be 65 again here today in February at Mile High. So I walked to work today in shorts,
which is awesome, but also it's February.
Yeah, downside of being in climate is not being able to necessarily always enjoy a sunny day. So that's where we're at. Well, since I've decided to put my negative pants on right at the jump of the show here, let's go ahead and get into what we're going to be talking about today. You want to tell us about what we're doing? It's a little AI today.
Yeah, it's the Pentagon versus the AI safety squad today. So strap in, because this one is right in our wheelhouse. You got the Pentagon on one side, you got Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth essentially telling an AI company to fall in line or get crushed. And the other side, you've got Anthropic. And this is an AI startup company based out of San Francisco that's behind Claude. If you've used, Gemini or ChatGPT, this is Claude. This is the Anthropic's generative AI company. So or the company is Anthropic. Claude is the
agentic agent.
The agent. Thank you. It's the only AI running inside the military's classified networks, and basically, this is Anthropic saying, "We'll work with you, but we were not going to let you use our AI to build weapons that fire with zero human in the loop." And we talked about this last week. This is in the kill chain. Is there a human or is there not? And we're not going to let you run mass surveillance on American citizens either. But the Pentagon's coming back and basically saying, we are going to designate you a supply chain risk. And we'll get into what that means. But a supply chain risk and designation that's normally reserved for foreign adversaries like China, and could mean that any contractor doing business with the military would have to completely sever ties with Anthropic. And that's a big deal. I mean, Anthropic has raised a lot of money, but they're still a startup. So this is a $200 million contract. It's a $380 billion company. And July 11th is a deadline that sort of every major AI lab needs to sign on what the Pentagon is calling, the use of AI for any, quote unquote, any lawful use. So OpenAI, Google, XAI, they all blinked, basically signed up. Anthropic has not. And today we're asking, who's right? Is anybody playing politics with this? Does it mean that the future of AI is sort of integral into our national security discussions, and whether every startup in the defense tech space needs to do this or not? So, I don't know. First, as my tee up, anything to add, Mike?
Yeah, it's funny, man. Like we were talking about this last week, and it makes me think a lot about Google. When it first started off, you had like this idealism of its founders, and their company motto was "Don't be evil," which seemed like nice, but also a little simple. And it's kind of funny that how far they've fallen. Effectively, that they're quite happy to do anything that's quote legal, any lawful exercise of that. Anybody that's really a study of history is that legal is not always the threshold for ethical. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of examples where things that were legal were like morally out of line, way out of line. So Google, how far you've fallen. I'm kind of proud of Anthropic is the other thing that I see here. It's a little bit of standing up for maybe a certain position within the marketplace, of course, but also a little bit of a place of where they are going to be as a company. $200 million as a contract's not really all that big compared to like what they have. It's huge for companies like you and me, but for Anthropic at this point, they're doing billions in revenue. 200 million's a hit, but it ain't crushing. So I'm there's a lot to see here and a lot to pull apart, man. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, one, if you remember, this is tied into a broader Anthropic position. You may remember from the Super Bowl, there were sort of a couple of ads that I remember from the Super Bowl. One of them was a sort of dig at ChatGPT because there's now a handful of these AIs out there. Claude and ChatGPT to me are sort of the most useful, like from certain perspectives. Interestingly, Google is owning the market. I mean, they especially because it's tied to search, I think, and people trust it more. But anyway, if you look at the data, I think Google's got 80% of the usage of the AI agents. That also may just be because Google's got such reach with Gmail and Workspace. But I think Anthropic really differentiated itself with how they position we're not going to sell you an ad in the middle of a chat query. Do you remember those ads?
Oh yeah, they were on the nose, man. They were great. Yeah. So go on.
Really differentiated themselves from ChatGPT, right? Because I think what ChatGPT, OpenAI has said is that that part of the revenue model is we're going to sell you ads in the middle of a answer, which is problematic. And I think if you really think that through, you're like, wait, how am I going to know which one's the bot and which one's the commercial endeavor here where I'm being sold something? And I think to your point, Anthropic pretty much nailed it. They're like, yeah, I'm going to give you an answer and then I'm going to give you this really weird thing in the middle that's going to make everybody uncomfortable. And those ads did kind of make you uncomfortable. You're like, that's pretty weird.
I thought they were really great too because like the person that was playing the AI in each one of those ads would like pause for a second too,
right?
Like so there was just like this like little bit of this robotic sort of response associated with it. It was just human enough, but it kind of what is that that gap that you can fall into when it's like realistic enough that like it actually kind of creeps you out.
Yeah, totally. It acted a little bit like the bot because humans respond right away. The bot has to think a second.
Yeah, it was great. It also makes me think a little bit about like how, I was just dogging on Google, but also like OpenAI, like they speed ran, like they started as a nonprofit about like, the benevolent development of AI and about like, this is for humanity's future. And then they just speed ran away from any sort of ethical implementation of that. And now they're into porn, into selling you shit like in the middle of like, if you're going through counseling through AI, like you have, potential there. And now they're cool with like any lawful use of AI for the killing of human beings. Like, it's interesting because it ties back to like a previous interview you and I did where we talked about like what's the responsibility of tech companies to the use of their product. And I just continue to refuse to accept that you have no responsibility for how your product's used. Alfred Nobel was so horrified by the use of dynamite for war, even though he was his inventor, that he ended up creating a peace prize associated with it. Like he was, he went to his grave like almost regretting his own invention. And so I don't know why the people of OpenAI haven't figured that one out. I don't know why the people at Google, maybe it's just the dollar signs, maybe it's so corrupting, but boy, they're speed running towards some behavior that is very not cool.
Yeah. Well, so this sort of picks up right from where we left off last week, which is, I think I know where you stand, but, when you heard that an AI model would be used in the kill chain and the Pentagon they're not saying they're going to do it. Let's be clear about that. They don't want a limitation. What's your gut reaction?
I think that we should have humans in the kill chain, just period. Like, I don't have a problem with AI being used to help identify, to find, fix, target, track, to do all the things that we, that humans are not necessarily the best at. AI might be able to do a little bit better, but there needs to be a human in that chain. It just has to be there, especially when we have people like, my classmate from the Naval Academy, a guy named Tim Parlatore, who will muddy the waters about what is legal enough. So that way you have this defense of it, of something horrific and probably actually pretty illegal, like becoming under the guise of being legality, right? There needs to be a human in there. Otherwise, why do we even have like an officer corps? Like, why do we have soldiers at all? Like, if we're just going to enable kill machines, like there has to be, in my opinion, and I think the most ethicists I would think are probably on my side. At a minimum, there has to be a human in that chain. Otherwise, we are setting ourselves up for some pretty awful stuff.
Yeah, I mean, my gut reaction is the same. I think when I've tried to think this through a little bit and look down the line, I think there's versions of this where one, and I kind of alluded to this last week, I think if this means that we're going to be at a tactical disadvantage, then it gets harder. And I understand that, what you said last week is like morality is not relative, but I also think it gets harder if we lose military advantage. And so I think there's a version of this, and this is definitely a futurist kind of thought here, but it's maybe there's a version of this where you've got a human guiding the agents, not making specific decisions, but still in the loop from a sort of a slightly abstract level. So the decisions are still being made rapidly at a computer's pace, but the moral and ethical decisions are being made by the human who's just one level removed.
I'd have to see what that looks like. I mean, first of all, like it's not like we're creating a huge technical barrier here, right? Which is that if the human is a binary yes or no, right? Like that is easily automated, right? So like the idea of like that we couldn't quickly engineer around that, like if we ran into an adversary that like it's kind of a false premise in my opinion. The second part of it is like who's really going to be able to do that? China. That's it. Like that's the only country really that I think that would have the capacity to be able to both have the weapons to deploy and the technology to be able to implement some sort of AI situation. And they're behind us on AI development, and they remain behind us as long as we continue to kind of push forward into this space. So I just don't want to be fucking afraid. Like making decisions out of a place of fear of like what they could potentially, I don't know, do, like just feels like divorcing ourselves of the moral responsibility of our decisions and being I'm not saying that we should be a Pollyanna and that like there won't be people that might try to do things here, but like let's do it from a place of rational, informed opinion. And until I see some evidence that there's somebody that has, built Terminators that are coming after us with, fully autonomous, like, kill machines, I'm just skeptical that we can't include humans in the loop and like retain a component of like what it is that's important about both our country and our armed forces.
Yeah. Well, so moving on a bit, I'm going to tee you up also for this sort of supply chain risk designation here, which was created for Huawei and ZTE, which, for those not familiar, it's a formal term, supply chain risk management. It's a designation that comes out of the National Defense Authorization Act, gives the Pentagon the authority to exclude a company from federal contracts. So, as I said, it's been, when Huawei was, creating essentially backdoors on our communications networks, I think rightly, we sort of kicked them out. And essentially this hasn't been used against a U.S. company. And in this case would be sort of unique. And it's not just that the DoD wouldn't buy. You couldn't also buy from Lockheed, Raytheon, Booz Allen, et cetera. So that designation would be a killer for really any national security engagement. And so the question is this a legitimate national security lever, or is it just kind of hostage taking?
Oh, I think you know my answer. Like this is when people like decry and they scream about like socialism, creeping socialism, it's this boogeyman that's going to come in, hide your kids, hide your wife, sort of stuff, right? And the real fear of socialism has been that you'll have state control of lots of different things, and that the power of the state will be used to punish the individual. And that's what's being done here. The Trump administration has engaged in active socialism. The U.S. government now owns the means of production in several key areas, from chip manufacturing with Intel to other mining. They've gotten into mining. And there's a play around national security. I'm not saying like it's not important for us to be paying attention to that, but they now own the means of production. They own parts of those companies. The flip of that is that they're
thankfully just small parts, but yes, parts.
I mean, 10%. They would be on the board if they were an individual.
I've said this before. Like,
I know you and I agree.
I just want to be clear. It's not. They're not owning 90%. They're a small part. They shouldn't have any part, in my opinion. But thankfully, still a small part.
Yeah, but they have a major enough interest that they can flex. And this is another example of the flex. It's the other side of it. It's not just good enough that the federal government decides like, no, we want to go work with these unethical players that are willing to let us develop like kill chains without human beings in it, right? Like that's not enough for them. They also have to punish you for standing up for a certain belief there, and that's what they're doing. That's it. There's no reason that they to be doing this other than they don't like being told no. That's it. It's just people in the government deciding that they're going to flex all the powers of the government in order to punish private capital for making a business decision. And that's the negative side of like what people talk about with socialism.
On the positive side, Anthropic actually has some leverage here. So I mentioned before that Google's got the largest share of search related and other sort of general queries. But if you look at corporate America, it's about flipped, right? Anthropic has created sort of or doubled down on and been very successful in getting enterprise clients or corporate customers. And in particular, if you look at one of their tools, one of their agents called Claude Code, you've heard that now software developers are not writing their own code. That's primarily Claude Code. There are others like OpenAI has their own version of this, but they have a tiny little percent of that market. Claude Code is way more capable and way more used. And I think from that perspective, the Boeings and Lockheeds, Raytheons they're going to have something to say if Anthropic gets edged out here.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I was reading an article the other day that talked about that OpenAI, Anthropic, they're actually using their own models to write the software for their own models, right? Like, so you now have this feedback loop where they've created software powerful enough to write software to improve the software. And so, we'll see where that goes, but like that's only going to accelerate. And so it is a strategic capability. And I think Anthropic, from a positioning standpoint, if they can survive this kind of nuclear option from the federal government, which they probably will, it's brilliant. I mean, I think they're so well positioned because one of the things that any sort of corporate client's going to want to know is that, are you the kind of organization that stands up for our own privacy? Any individual should want to see this. It's kind of like, it reminds me of like Apple, not wanting to give up, And so as a result, people inherently trust Apple more than Google, and for their own personal sort of stuff. And I think there could be a very similar sort of thing here for Anthropic versus like OpenAI, especially within that framing of OpenAI selling your information or using your information in order to sell you products or to give you porn or like whatever fucking underworld shit they're doing right now.
Yeah, so that's the other part of this is that Claude is being used for continuous monitoring of American social media. It's being connected to voter rolls, public records, and quote unquote profiles of interest. You may recall that this is essentially Palantir's business model, but I don't know that this gives me the heebie-jeebies. Like as an American who feels like it's these are our streets, and the government doesn't have the right to give us permission. We have a right to walk down the streets without being questioned by the Gestapo. In a similar way, I mean, I don't know. Let me tee you up for this. You know where I come from on this. What do you think about the use of Claude for this continuous monitoring piece?
Yeah, I mean, like it does highlight a weakness that Anthropic has here as well, right? Their stuff has already been used for purposes that are less than above board. They got to clean their act up. I do worry a lot about the government being able to do all this. I saw a report about how the Department of Homeland Security is trying to integrate everything into one database. So your fingerprint, your face, you have TSA pre-check and you happen to be shown up at a protest, it'll be in one database and they may deny your pre-check. They may start to actually pull you out for additional screening security. Like there's maybe you no longer are able to, engage in the Second Amendment because you get flagged associated with that. Like there's a lot of like big concerns associated with that behavior of, I mean, they wrote about books about this. What was it, 1984, and Big Brother
So when I come back from an international trip now, I don't even open my passport. I walk up to a screen. I have global entry, which is like you have TSE pre-check. Global entry is like the next level up from that. And it's not really rated, whatever. It's meant for people that do international travel. I walk up, they take a picture of my face and they wave me through.
Yep. And so, it's worth acknowledging there are some conveniences associated with this. I would like that. I have that I'm a global entry guy as well. And so I get the touchless pre-check and I'm engaged in that, right? So I do, but there is a question of like privacy and concern and safety. And like, do I trust my government with that information anymore? If I were to go to a protest, would I go with my face uncovered? We're starting to get down some kind of dark paths here. I have a right to go to a protest. It's protected two ways in, both in assembly and speech, as in the First Amendment. And so but if I go do that and the government is displeased with me, are they going to single me out? They're doing that to Anthropic. Palantir, but the flip of that, I would also say is that like Palantir is a particularly, immoral company. And there was a fun little story, being here in Denver is that they actually left Denver. They moved their headquarters to Florida. This is the second time that they've moved their headquarters. And the protest is because, where I was going to say about the power of the individual, the headquarters was going to be moving into a new part of Denver, a new building, et cetera. People kept protesting outside of the new facility that they were building, and they were like, you know what, enough of this noise. We're going to go to Florida where we can be closer to, the ring that we need to kiss. And so it's funny, like when you like go on to like Nextdoor or to Reddit or any of the social media kind of sites that, where I track like what's going on in my community, everyone's like, good fucking riddance. Like nobody wanted them here. There's only a few people that like have like a little bit of political hay to make out of it. But for the most part, like it shows the power of a couple of individuals to be like, we don't want these people in our community doing the evil shit that they're doing. So get bent, Palantir. That's my my model. But also as an individual, like stand up. It can have an effect.
Yeah, I'm less critical of Palantir. I definitely feel like there have been moments where they overstepped, but I also appreciate the national security capabilities that they bring. I think where the problematic parts of it are, of course, again, this is my personal bias coming out, is like how it's used potentially against American citizens. And look, I signed up for global entry because it's convenient. It's also because I was in the military. They've got my DNA. They have my fingerprints. I don't have any secrets. I don't care. I don't care. But I care more now because the current administration feels more and more like the Gestapo. This is why it's problematic. If we truly had a government that believed in and followed the Constitution, I'm fine. Have all my stuff, man. I got nothing to hide. But when the government starts feeling more like the Gestapo, that's when we should all get nervous.
Yeah, 100%. And there's a reason, what was the guy that was the local head that they fired before they brought in Homan there?
Yeah.
Starts with a B. Anyways, that dude, I saw, a little video on social media the other day, and it was somebody doing a parody of Cake's long coat and or short skirt and a long jacket. And it was about this guy because he wore around like a a trench coat that made him look like he was in the fucking SS. Like, it's not like they're not even being subtle about like wanting to be like the Gestapo. They're doing it intentionally. They're dressing like they're in the military in camo in an environment where they aren't trying to blend in. They're trying to intimidate. They're wearing masks. They're taking pictures and sharing that and putting you into databases. They're detaining American citizens. You know, they're detaining people they hear that are here legally and keeping them for months. Like it's just they want
Greg
to be
Bovino.
seen that way. Yeah, that's it.
I looked him up. I cheated. I looked him up. Anyway, to close the loop on this, July 11th is the hard deadline for all the AI labs to sign up for the quote unquote any lawful use. Anthropic CEO Dario is reportedly being summoned to the Pentagon. So, I mean, the premise there is they're going to try to talk him into it. But look, the question is, are they going to cave? Are they going to rally their current sort of market power and reshape the conversation? We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see about it. It does bring up the fact that, you know, it's a little bit of a double-edged sword to be in defense tech. What the government gives, it can take away. And apparently in this case, not only will it take away, but it might actually like go after you too. It's one thing to lose a contract. It's another thing to like lose an entire business model.
All right, moving on to the reader mailbag. We've actually got a couple comments from last week's episode. For those of you that are interested, our email is hardpoints.show@gmail.com. If you write into us, we could feature your comment on a future episode. One is just kind of a compliment. It's from Nuzzy, 7214. He says, I've never watched. I had Nuzzy. He's like, I don't even remember subscribing, but someone gifted me a membership, and shout out to that guy. So I think that's just a compliment. Pretty sure it is. I appreciate it. Thanks, Nuzzy. And the other comments from Being Lifted, and it was we went off on a tangent about tipping last week, and this is a comment maybe tied to what I was saying about I was a waiter, so I'm a little bit harsher, and I'll go down to 10% and I'll tip 30%. But the comment from Being Lifted is I dated a fine dining country club waiter for a couple of years. The first time we went out to eat, I think to Big Boys, by the way, that's a throwback. Bob's Big Boy. Hello.
It's like the guy with holding up the hamburger, and it was in Austin Powers. Big Boy goes into space.
Totally. He left change for a tip, complaining about the service. She says, I think it's a she, says, I don't remember what he said, and I didn't agree, but accepted it. Over time, I learned that he was never happy with the service anywhere we went. At first, I would sneak back to leave a more reasonable tip, and then I just started doing it in the open. That's pretty bold. Like she would go back in and like do a tip.
I'm just surprised she stuck around with a guy. Like if he's just a negative dude, you know?
Also, I am not advocating for never tipping. I'm saying that it should like the level of service shouldn't matter. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And yeah, you know, don't date a cheapskate. So
also that, yeah.
So so what's going on good in your life, man? Goods, bads, and others.
Well, good was I'm just going to reference that boys road trip from last week. It was pretty awesome. I got a lot of time with just, long drives where I would open a conversation and we talk about sports and school and life and relationships. And that was awesome. It was just good memories.
I think there's something about road trips, man. Like it's just good for like dads and kids in particular. I don't know, like, I have great conversations with my wife, but like my kids just open up a lot more when they're like forced to be in a car with me and they want to have that conversation.
Yep. The bad is the tariff madness. Now it's not just, I'm happy that the Supreme Court, of course, stood up, essentially said Congress has got to do its job, but like it's just a mess. And it's going to be even more of a mess as people try to get paid back or not paid back. I don't know. It's more chaos. And as somebody who's trying to run a business, and actually we're going to end up buying a lot of steel and aluminum over the next 5 years or so, I had no fucking idea what to think. I have no way to build a strategic plan. it's just a mess. So that's bad.
Yep.
My other
badness.
is just bad. My other is Tom Homan. I'm going to double down on this, man. I know
Is this
you
guy like
disagree
a
with me.
godfather or something like
No,
this? Or did he like send you like a box of chocolates for Valentine's Day? What's going on here, man?
I'm just saying, man, if you listen to the words that come out of his mouth, he is the reasonable dude in the room now. And I read up on this a little bit. So hear me out for a second. Apparently, this is as reported, he argued for essentially what he was doing during the Obama administration. A lot of people remember he was also he had a different title, but he ran sort of
Border enforcement was
deportations
his primarily thing there. Yep.
in the Obama administration. What he did, Obama was the quote unquote deporter in chief, in part because Homan went after violent criminals. And so apparently at the start of this administration, Homan proposed that they go after violent criminals, and he was shot down. I'm guessing Stephen Miller, whatever. But the point is that he was
fascist.
Well, but my point is like people have hated on Tom Homan. I have had my own words about that guy. I'm just saying, if you listen to what he's saying now, he's trying to get us back to a more reasonable position where I think all of us can agree that deporting violent criminals is a valid objective. I don't have a problem with that. I am trying to find some goodness, some like pull the Gestapo off the street and go back to a more reasonable way of conducting ISIS business.
I think there's, to add a little nuance to this. I think when I was saying that little fascist, I was talking about a needle dick Stephen Miller, right? Like, he is just like a fascist to his core. When I was talking about Tom Homan, I'm skeptical because ICE is still in Minnesota, right? And so, like, you can say all the nice words until I start seeing like some real actions, like. So this is why it's maybe an other rather than like a good. So there's that. But I want to see those words turning into actions. The other thing that I think about there a little bit, like about the deporting violent criminals, is I don't think that's in the national security interests of the United States. And here's why. Part of the reason that MS-13 is so fucking violent is because it was formed by deported Salvadorans from the United States, where they learned how to become gang members here, and then they were sent back to El Salvador, where then they formed up MS-13. And so if they're a violent criminal, we have means of dealing with that, which is you put them in fucking prison. Like, you run them through the American legal system, and then when they're done, then we deport them, right? So like they get but like they have to serve their time, and we have to kind of take that edge off where we're not doing that. So I think there's a little bit of nuance that we should inject into that. But either way, if we're going after, if ICE is involved in going after violent criminals and putting them into the legal system, okay with that. I think I'm just fine with that. So I don't know. I think there's a lesson we could learn out of the deporter in chief time, that Tom and Homan was involved before.
Let me say this. Tom Homan, come on, man. Prove me right, bro. Let's go.
Or send him a box of chocolates. I don't know. My good, and I'm going to be a little sappy here, is, one of the things I recognize is that, like, wherever my wife is home for me. And I've been not sleeping very well the last couple of nights, and I got up in the middle of the night last night to, go take a piss. And,
as old men do.
Yeah, I'm not quite that bad, but like, I have a tendency to wake up after about like 6 hours. So it's like good enough that like I could get up and get about my day, like I'm not going to feel like totally sleep deprived, but it's not enough sleep for me. And, she was like, well, just after I got up, I happened to have woken her up, and she said, why don't you come on back to bed? And I said, all right. So got in bed, and, I was the little spoon. She just gave me a big old hug, and I went to sleep. And I've got
you're too big to be a little spoon.
Yeah,
but
I was
the
inner spoon, if you will. The serving spoon to her teaspoon, if you will. But nonetheless, like, it's funny because I was looking at my watch this morning. I've got one of those watches that tracks your sleep, and like all of my metrics were up and to the right, like going the right direction from that point on. And it's weird our dumb little monkey brains about like how important that is to us, is just like that sense of connection. So, I'd wish for everybody to have kind of what I have, which is a wife that I love and who loves me. So there you go.
Awesome,
Lindsay.
man.
A little late for Valentine's Day, but there you go. I'll put it into the universe.
Awesome.
The bad for me is my new office that I was going to be moving into. We were just about to sign the lease, and then they kind of pulled the rug out from under us and said, "Nope, actually, we're going to be." Had nothing to do with us. Apparently, somebody else in the building wanted that space, and so that's where they at. So back to square one on that. No big deal, I guess, but like it's just kind of a bummer because I was getting excited about it, thinking about like what my walk to work would look like, etc. And then my other is winter in Colorado. I hope we have one. Like just kind of like there's like this perpetual hope that like it'll come. And so March tends to be a pretty snowy month for us here. February, it looks like Denver is going to get no we got a trace of snow, like not enough to actually like record like as a 1/100th of an inch of depth. So it's been a very dry, warm month, and so I'm hoping that we get a proper winter here. Otherwise, the wildfires are going to be fucking bananas this year.
Yeah.
So, well, everybody, if you hear that, say a little prayer, do a snow dance, if you will, cross your fingers, whatever you got to do, but help bring us snow here in Colorado because we are the headwater state. We provide a lot of water to the rest of the country. Anyways, that's it for this episode of Hard Points. Thanks for listening and for being part of the conversation around energy, national security, and the startup economy. If you have a question or comment about today's show, please send us an email and we may feature it on a future episode. As Neal mentioned before, our email is hardpoints.show@gmail.com. Again, hardpoints.show@gmail.com. In addition, please make sure to follow us wherever you get your podcast, share it on social media, send it to somebody who'd appreciate it. We'd love it if you would. That comment, we'll talk about it on the show too. Thanks for joining us. Hard Points is brought to you by the Valor Media Network. We'll see you next time.